Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tai'Shar Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Sam.
I'm Will.
We're back day after Halloween, heading into November, and here in the U.S. we have elections this week, so we had double ooh. It's still spooky this week, even though Halloween has passed. But luckily, I spend a lot of time listening to political podcasts. And I'm just, I'm glad to say that this is not one of them. When an episode of this comes out, I don't feel that little spark of anxiety like politics. Yes. Nope. We are firmly in the world of the Wheel of Time. Is there a name for the world of the Wheel of Time? I don't know that there is.
Well, like the lands that most of the plot takes place are often referred to as the Westlands.
Not to be confused with Westeros.
Yes. Or, some people call it Randland. I think there's even a podcast like named Randland or something like that.
That has a good ring to it. I'm okay with that. That's funny that it's just like isn't, Brandon Sanderson's whole like universe is called the Cosmere. Right. And he's kind of defined all that stuff. And I don't know. I would love to ask him if he, at least in his own headcanon, would place the Wheel of Time in the Cosmere or Cosmere adjacent, perhaps, like a bubble attached to the pattern. I don't know.
Yeah.
If he drops some little Easter eggs in there somewhere. I don't know.
That would be a good question. I mean, I suspect he would say no.
I'm sure. He was really dedicated to preserving the image, the world as Jordan envisioned it and everything, but in headcanon, I can picture, certainly.
Today's a show update. What does that mean, Sam?
In all caps. Spoiler warning, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to discuss the television program that will be appearing on Amazon Prime, and as such, that means that all plot points contained within the books are fair game when we were discussing that, because it all could come up. So if you've not finished all the books, or if you just don't want to hear spoilers, you're doing a reread like we are, feel free to catch back up with us next week when we continue slogging through the Crown of Swords.
Absolutely. So having said that, we're going to now go into the official news that we have.
Some of real official news. It's pretty nice.
Yes.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it was pretty weird. So yeah.
Head scratcher, like, what are you guys doing here?
We'll start with the Serdit in the room. Most recently, the clip released by the WoT on Prime social accounts that depicts an animation of Saidin and Saidar. And if you haven't seen it, go look at Instagram or Twitter at whichever WoT on Prime official account you want to. And or follow really any of the main cast on their social accounts, because pretty much all of them posted it too. And the animation is pretty simple, but pretty cool looking. Yeah, it depicts the two halves of the true source more as like droplets of liquid.
Right, like mercury or something. I don't know.
Right, yeah. It makes it easy for me to imagine like the eye of the world as a pool of untainted Saidin after seeing this.
Sure. Yeah.
That was my first thought. And the clips are sounds of what sounds to me like a panicking crowd or something.
Right.
You hear a woman's voice ask, "You ready?" followed by a man saying no, and her responding, "Me neither." Egwene herself, Madeline Madden, confirmed on her Instagram post about it that indeed that's the voice of Egwene and Perrin.
Yeah, so there's plenty of places in the book where this could happen. It could have happened in Emmett's Field with the Trolloc attack. Any point thereafter, really.
Yeah, you have the point during which Egwene and Perrin are separated from the others, the middle early portion of Eye of the World. That's around the time they meet Elias and run into the White Cloaks and everything like that. That was my first thought, is that maybe it was sometime in the course of their...
Sure. Yeah, I didn't think of that. I just sort of like half expected that whole like section to get cut.
Right. Oh, well, I think you're more than likely we're going to see it either cut or
as a montage or something.
Yeah, very, very compressed. But yeah, that was the big thing. It's like a 15-second, 12-second clip or something.
Yeah, right.
I watched it probably a dozen times in a row and like trying to mine more out of it. And it's just
there's just nothing.
Yeah, I think I mentioned to you that the first couple of times I watched it, I couldn't tell if there's a light shining down from the top, and it becomes brighter, man, at the end of the clip. And for a minute, when I watched it the first few times, I thought that it was supposed to be Saidar lighting up, because that was the half that was under the light when it was rotating around. But after a bit, I realized, no, it's just there's a light coming up from the top. And
Lens flare. J.J. Abrams is going to
Yeah.
put his stamp on the show he's not involved in. Little lens flare.
there you go. It's basically what it was. But like for a second, I was like, oh, well, this is maybe a representation of like Egwene first using her ability to channel, or I don't know. Anyway,
Right.
not a ton to mine out of it, but it is fun to have an official release of, even if it's basically just sound, really.
Yeah, that is like, hey, the show is they filmed something, like we have audio. Like, we don't have any
Right.
video, but we have audio. Like
Exactly.
come on,
so-
guys, get a trailer. Doesn't have to be long, just something. Every time we get something like this, like the little thing where there was the in the background, I was just like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Just something.
Yeah. Come on. Give us a little more than that. I want to hear the music.
Oh, yeah, I even thought about the music. That's a good point.
Yeah. I have moments where I'm like, what if the show is good, but the music just is terrible?
Yeah, it's like, unexpectedly The Witcher had good, had some catchy music, it's like, what?
Right.
Would never have expected that. I mean, I guess people who are fans of the stuff would have, but I would not have. So hopefully, Wheel of Time will have good music of some kind.
Hey, I guess, if Xena Warrior Princess can have a catchy theme, then surely they can come up with a decent one for Wheel of Time.
The bar is set. I mean, clearly. Game of Thrones, great theme. Gotta... At this point, it's been heard a million times. But
so, other official news. We also got word a couple of weeks ago of some new casting news, or more specifically, that some cast members we had yet to meet actually finished their shooting for this season anyway. According to WoTSeries.com, Sandra Yee, and I'm probably going to butcher the last part of this, Diver. I don't know. I'm just going to call her Sandra. Sandra Yee.
There you go.
She is an American, Danish, Korean actress.
Man.
Yeah, right? That would be an interesting restaurant,
it's like
right?
Spanning the entire globe.
Yeah.
Multi-continent.
She's fluent in English and Danish and is trained in the Danish National School of Performing Arts. And she was first spotted in Prague in early March 2020, before the shutdown. And that was around the time that what some are referring to as like Block 4 table read, like the last couple of episodes table read was going on.
Yeah.
During the production of Block 4, she was spotted participating in filming for a few weeks, including night shoots around the time filming was taking place in, I don't even know how to pronounce this Czech city, what's the little tilde over the C? Somebody, I'm sure one of our readers knows exactly, but I would say a soft C, like a ch, but then what's the next C? Ledchisi? I don't know.
Sounds good to me. I don't know.
Somebody, I guess, tell us how to pronounce that. So that's Sandra Yee. Then there's Thomas Channing. That's actually spelled like
Channing. Yeah.
Channing. He's also a Danish-born actor currently living in Sweden, who's fluent in Danish, Swedish, English, and Cantonese.
Jeez, man. Wow.
Yeah, right? He has experience with horse riding and martial arts.
Hopefully at the same time.
Yep. And has been seen practicing both of those skills in Prague. Prior to filming, he shared on Instagram that he had spent some time practicing riding with Archie, who is one of the horses playing Bella. I saw a rumor that he is playing Agelmar. Now, I don't know where that came from, so I don't really have much of a reason to believe that, other than I could see it. Like,
yeah, sure.
He looks like he could be a good Agelmar. Then the last one was Amir Chadha Patel. He's a British actor and musician. Apparently, he can currently be seen in HBO's The Third Day. In an interview back in September, he was asked what he had planned next. Amir stated that he was off to Prague next week to start shooting on an Amazon TV series. He was previously in Prague at the beginning of March for costume fitting around the same time that same Block 4 table read was held for those last couple of episodes. So here's my guess with these three. If Channing is playing Agilmar, which I could totally see him as, my guess is that Sandra Yee is either playing a gender swapped character and like one of the Shinarans gender swaps.
Yeah, it's interesting that like all the Shinarans are male that like, you know, travel with them. So yeah, I can see it.
Or just Agilmar's sister. If I'm remembering correctly, that was I thought it was his wife, but at one point, but I think if I'm remembering now, I think it was his sister. And then my guess for Amir is either Massima or Huron, and honestly, it could go either way.
Yeah. Both fairly important characters that will play a role in the next season.
Right. That's my guess for those three.
You could see like Sandra Yee being like a gender swapped Huron or something. It would make sense to do Huron that way, especially because Huron and Julian Sandar always seemed interchangeable to me, even though one is Shinaran and one is Tyran. But you know, swapping things up a little bit like that would work. I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Gender swapping is always controversial among purists and fans
so
of
many things are controversial. You know, it's like if you're a purist, just read the books and
just read the books.
Just stay away from any other medium.
You know, I think you're talking about tertiary characters like Huron.
Yeah, like it's not going to have any impact on the plot. It just can't.
Right.
You know, like unless suddenly Huron is like in love with Rand, like, okay, well, then that would have a major impact on the plot. But as long as you're not having any substantive change to the plot itself or to a major character, yeah, go for it.
I don't know. I could even see Massima gender swap, but I'm afraid, like, since Massima ends up being such a weirdo, I almost don't want that to be the case.
Right. I prefer Agilmar, really.
Right. Yes.
That would be okay.
Yeah, that would be interesting. You know, having one of the great captains be gender swapped. Sure.
That actually, the more we talk about that, I'd like that idea.
Yeah.
I could see the show doing that. Would make sense. It would be in keeping with, you know, the way they've cast things, you know, trying to have a more multiracial cast and, you know, just swap things up a little bit.
And I feel like Agilmar would actually be the one for whom the gender would matter the least of the five great captains.
Sure, yeah. Like you wouldn't want to do that with like Bashir,
right?
You know, like that's pretty fun back and forth between him and his wife, and of course with Fail. I mean, could, but I think half of the fun is that the fact that Bashir is the great captain and his wife is this super imposing lady that just like rules him.
Yeah, you couldn't do it with Bren. I mean, not without really the domino effect there would be huge. And I mean, I guess you could do it with Ituralda, but
yeah, that's the only other one. You wouldn't want to do it with Pedro Nile because white cloaks aren't going to accept a lady, you know, cap. You know, you wouldn't want that because the white cloaks need to be as awful as possible.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like that would not be in keeping. Like they would be too enlightened if the Lord Captain Commander of the White Cloaks was a lady. Like, wait a minute, no, they need to be worse than that.
So that would be interesting. That's all the official news, at least that I was made aware of. Hey, if we ever miss anything and you're like, hey, you didn't talk about this, it's possible that either we missed it or I just didn't get it into our list of stuff to talk about. And so if we do ever miss anything and you're like, hey, you didn't talk about this, or you think we didn't think about something, we always love hearing from you guys.
Please, so yeah, absolutely.
Jump onto our website at tsmpodcast.com to fill out our contact form. So we'll remind you again at the end of the episode. But now we're going to go into the unofficial news. So lots of little bits. Nothing too exciting here. Several pictures of confirmed filming locations are posted on the Daily Trolloc subreddit. All very beautiful locations. Did you get a chance to look at those?
Yeah. I mean, clearly the fortress-looking place. I don't know, probably Shinar, right? I mean,
right.
And then, like, you know, the mountainous. You could see that being the Blight. You know, like they're headed from there to the mountainous place that's the Blight. That kind of would make sense to me.
Sure. Similarly, Pak Aran Riyadh shared a interesting set photo that maybe they were thinking might be an image of the Blight.
Yeah, that was crazy looking. Yeah. Kind of these crazy looking like tree roots that are
dead tree root kind of things. And
And what looks like some bunk beds. I don't know. I'm sure it's like something set related. I don't know.
Yeah, from the look of it, I think that's all lighting, and that amount of lighting looks like it would be for day for night.
Interesting.
So,
I had no idea that it just looks like, scaffolded bunk beds or I don't know, water balloons or something. Interesting.
Also, the little girl playing Young Swan posted on her Twitter account. Yes, she has a Twitter account. Even though she looks like she's younger than 13, and I'm pretty sure you have to be 13 to have a Twitter account. So I don't know how that works, but
love it.
Apparently she started filming close to the start of October for whatever bit she had. So that's all we know about that. Daniel Henney posted to his Instagram a few more shots of the gym, including the same writing that had the Jim Weaves as the Jim Wills, and a picture of his practice sword.
Well, he needs to be in really good shape, and he needs to be really good with that sword. So keep at it, Daniel.
Yep. He needs to move with wolf-like grace.
Yeah, I love how, of course, they always talk about the wolf-like grace. And I love how, randomly, somebody will talk about how his face is chiseled from stone, but also all the ladies always chased after him. I remember at one point where the Aes Sedai says that, well, wait, which is it? I guess there's just a lot of ladies who are into the chiseled stone face look.
I don't know. Maybe I need to get out a chisel and work on my face some.
Get some wolf-like grace.
Yosha posted an updated picture of that same the Jim Weaves text, where it had been written over with the words bloody and flaming every other word. So it was the bloody Jim Flaming Weaves as the bloody Jim Flaming Wills or whatever. In my head, that Barney Harris had to have written that.
Right. He does seem like the perfect Matt. I really am excited to see the interaction there. I'm not excited to see the interaction between him and Tylan, which we will get into. The next section of Crown of Swords.
Absolutely. Bless him.
Or maybe I am. Maybe they will do a wonderful job with it in the television show.
I am curious to see. I mean, and we'll talk about this in
we will.
The next few episodes.
Yeah, but that is it is a real there are opportunities, we'll call them that. Like in my work, talk about this where somebody screws up and it's an opportunity.
Right.
It's like there are opportunities like this in these books where it's like, Rafe, you can definitely do better. The bar is pretty low, set pretty low here. So, the sky's the limit, buddy. You can spin it however you want. Just please don't be a purist when it comes to those scenes. That's all I ask. Yeah, if you want to dial up the cringe, hey, it worked for The Office, but I don't think it's going to work here. That's just my opinion.
I will say that the whole including the bloody and flaming every other word, I suppose does seem to confirm that they're keeping the in-world curses. Not that I thought they would take them out, but I did. Every now and then I'll see people online kind of having this discussion about. They're
like, oh, it's corny or it's dumb or whatever. Dude, it's part of the experience of Wheel of Time. Take it or leave it. If you're going to make a show about the Wheel of Time, you just can't avoid that. I mean, I'm sorry. You just can't. You can try to make it more fitting for TV. I'm open to that. But if you don't have blood and bloody ashes in the television show along with skirt smoothing, I am not going to watch. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, there are just certain things that it's like you got to, braid tugging, mother's milk in a cup.
Cut Sidine and Sidar out of the show, but if you don't have braid tugging, it's not Wheel of Time.
that is about right. That's
I don't care what else you do.
The biggest chunk of unofficial news was some really clear photos taken by a Czech photographer of a scene involving Rand and Egwene. It looks like it was at one of those locations that we were looking at earlier.
Like in Shinar, like they're, training or something, like before the Emerald shows up, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah. Faldara seems like to me is a likely location. Yeah. Rand's holding a bow, and one observant person noticed that a sword with kind of a shiny coppery scabbard, and some were thinking this maybe is the Heron Mark blade that Tam
it looked really cool. Looked really cool.
Yeah. So that's all exciting. And
Definitely looks katana-like, which, isn't exactly 100% how I imagined the heron marked blades, but I am open to it. I was imagining like a shorter
Mhm.
pommel, I think, like a
Oh
one-handed
yeah.
pommel typically. But I'm open to it. I'm not,
I mean, I had pictured the blade curved, but I think not quite as katana-like as.
Yeah, exactly. Like a mixture between a katana and like a rapier or something.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
think.
I'll admit, part of that is just like the photos of like covers.
Yeah.
There's something to that.
So those photos are pretty cool. I'm gonna post a few of them on our Instagram sometime this week. So if you haven't seen them, you can check them out there. So that's it for news about the show. But we've got some time left. So,
Right.
um, so I'm curious, Sam, of the scenes that we have read so far in the series, what are you looking forward to and how do you hope they depict it? And I'll go ahead and say, other than Dumais Wells, because, that's obviously,
Sure.
that's definitely going to be in the show if they make it to that point.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking earlier because like definitely Falma. We've talked about this a little before, but how just the whole logistics of like they're fighting, but also they're fighting in the sky over Falma and like, and above other cities, whether or not Rand fighting Ishmael will appear in the sky above Taim or whatever and knock him off his horse, like we'll get those moments. Like, is Mazrim Taim going to already be in a show at that point? Like there's weird little things like that. Like, or will they, I don't know, you could see if they didn't want to cast Taim yet, because he doesn't have a big role yet. You could do that. You could have Logain be the stand-in there. Maybe somehow, you'd have to rearrange things, but it wouldn't necessarily be that bad to not have Logain be captured yet. We've talked about Logain potentially being like, a big bad,
red herring.
Red herring. Thank you. I'm looking at a picture of birds on my wall. I'm thinking, what is the bird I'm trying to think of? Red herring. Round robin is what I was trying to say. He's a round robin. That's he is. So I was thinking maybe that would be cool if they didn't want to cast Taim yet, who's a major character, and if you don't want to cast him for basically a cameo ahead of time, you could just swap that up. And really just that whole, at the end of the Eye of the World, all like the boss fights, obviously, but the end of the Eye of the World has some weird imagery in the way Rand uses the power.
Right.
And like, are they going to just do that, or are they going to go ahead and be more consistent with the rest of the books? And that's like, you mentioned the pool of Sidene earlier. Like the pool, there's no pool of Sidene anywhere else in the series. Like Sidene doesn't pool normally.
Right.
It's more of a cloud. The force.
Yeah. Would a pool of Sidene even be visible to people other than a male channeler? Like, that's
a good point. Or is it just going to look like our little 15-second clip of Sidene, like you mentioned? Which maybe.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm imagining like the Capri Sun commercials from the 90s where, you get like Capri Sun.
Right. Yeah, the Secret World of Alex Mack type like effect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly, yeah.
So I don't know. Those are the scenes that like, just like unashamedly, I love the boss fights. It's always fun to see Rand take on a force. It's funny, at the end of Crown of Swords, you think, okay, Rand's in a coma. We're not getting a boss fight. And he comes up out of the coma and we get a boss fight. Like, dang, man. It's just like taking care of business. We're going to get to this, but it bothers me how he doesn't eat anything. He wakes up from a coma. Like, all right, let's go fight somebody else.
Min just whispered to him, "Hey, it's the end of a book."
Like, oh shoot, okay, we got to get to it. Samael needs killing. We got to get to it. I can't be sleeping any longer. No time for a happy meal. We got to go. So I don't know. I'm curious if their show is going to do that. Like, if at the end of every season we're going to predictably, all right, time to kill another Forsaken. I mean, they really guess they kind of will because it's what the books do. But it's just funny that consistently. It's not every book, but it's almost every book.
A lot of them. Yeah, you get a boss fight. No, I mean it's part of the thing that makes Lord of Chaos a little more interesting to me anyway. Is that it's one of the only ones that ends with a very satisfying ending, but doesn't end with a focus on a
A
Forsaken.
Forsaken, right? Yeah, you have a big fight. That's a good point. I didn't even thought about it. Dude, might as well is like is a really satisfying ending, but yeah, the Forsaken nowhere to be found.
Right. As you're talking about Logain and Taim, something that I kind of wonder, because we know Logain's going to have an expanded role, and we've talked back and forth about that a little bit, and something that I could see getting a little more played up a little better is, well, I mean, for one thing, they could play more with whether Taim is good or bad, not make it so obvious.
Oh yeah, we've talked about how he's cartoonishly evil before, and it's like
Right.
eye rolling. Like, okay,
Yes.
either we need another, like we need to either make him just not as obviously evil, or have a red herring, like
Right.
maybe like Blue Gain or something that is cartoonishly evil, and then turns out to not be. Then
Right.
it, like something to throw everybody off a little bit.
Yeah. I was thinking about how by introducing Logain earlier, then you kind of end up with the possibility of a foil of two false dragons, and
I think that'd be good. It wasn't enough
various.
of that. Later, he sort of develops that, but early
Right.
on, it would have been helpful, really.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting because you don't get much about the interaction between Logain and Taim, even though we know they interacted quite a bit towards the end.
You get this idea that you get like that Logain is on the right side and Taim is on the wrong, but yeah, you don't get the direct conflict. And so I like the idea that you would have like the full kind of development of Logain's character from being cartoonishly evil to kind of like maybe even some sort of reconciliation all before Taim is introduced. So then it's like you have all this history, this baggage, quote unquote, surrounding a false dragon.
Right.
And it's like you have another false dragon show up. Like, okay, well, we sort of have a mental image of what that should look like. And then especially if at first it appears like Taim is matching, the way Logain interacted with Rand. And so then you could really subvert expectations more,
Right.
In a more complex, or I don't know, subtle way, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could come in and you could have the foil could really be, if Logain comes in guns ablazing, hey, look at me, I'm a powerful channeler, and I could be the Dragon Reborn and all this, and and kind of goes through this whole thing where he kind of gets broken after he
by the Red Alta or whatever.
Ends up being gentled and kind of has to face the possibility of just dying as a powerless, no name person to come back from that. Well, I mean, what if Taim is just way sneakier, and when he shows up, he's like, well, clearly you're the Dragon Reborn, and I was just wrong about that, and he just immediately seems like he's much more subservient. Which
I think that was kind of what Jordan was doing,
right.
but he also was clearly trying to foreshadow that wasn't the way
right.
things were.
Exactly.
And so those moments of prickliness and like anger and like fury, like with Dashiva, but
right.
maybe with Dashiva it's like, I don't know, it seems a little less obvious. I don't know.
Well, with Dashiva, he does such a good job of throwing you off by Taim.
He's crazy. Yeah,
by Taim thinking he's an idiot and and everything, and so you're like, well, Taim's clearly bad. So
right. So if they're not in cahoots, then like
right.
Dashiva must be just crazy.
Yeah, the madness has taken him early or whatever. But
yeah, that's another one of those opportunities where it's like, I'm not saying that Jordan did an awful job. It's just this is one of his weaknesses. This sort of thing. Like we want there to be more kind of shades of gray here where it's just not as obvious as it is. Like later it's just like this sort of disappointment, like, oh, he actually is bad. Oh man,
right.
I was hoping he was just kind of giving Rand a hard time and like
right.
chafing under like not being the most powerful channeler and not being the Dragon Reborn. Just kind of jealous of Rand's position but willing to help him defeat the dark. Nope, he's awful.
Dadgummit. Right. Yeah, it's your sudden but inevitable betrayal, as Wash says in Firefly. And I think about all the different things that I like to see. I'd love to see. I'm excited to see the wolves, of course, and all of that play out. We've talked about that. That's some stuff that.
I mean, I really, really hope we get to cleansing Sidene. That scene is just like. chef's kiss. Like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
like we got to get there, and it's way, way into the books. But if they move through them quick, it could
Yeah.
definitely happen. And just like the amount of the payoff, I just remember when I read that scene, I was so happy because you spent so much time expecting Rand to go crazy. It's
Right.
debatable whether or not he goes crazy before, but like expecting him to really just lose it, and seeing all these other men, go crazy, and hearing all the buildup about the breaking of the world, and how men channelers are dangerous, they go crazy, and then having this payoff of cleansing it, and just the
Right.
cool mechanics of that, of the
Right.
circle with Nynaeve and Rand channeling Saidar, and like having to learn to surrender to it a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. That
Yeah.
could be
No, I'm really looking forward to that for sure. And
visual of that.
I mean, which made Crossroads of Twilight all the more disappointing when you like end with this huge scene and then 23 chapters in before you get a Rand perspective in the next book.
I know. You're like, I just want to hear a Rand perspective where he is, pure
Yeah.
siding, and he's not crazy, and like everything is. But we have to catch up with everybody
And
else.
that's the actual number of chapters. I'm not exaggerating,
Oh,
by
my
the way.
goodness! Wow. Yeah.
That's you are 23 chapters in before you hear from
sloggiest part of the slog. In a sense.
Yep.
It's like we just had this huge payoff, and now let's just have 23 chapters of what?
Yes. Yeah. Catching up with
happened
them
over there. What was that?
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly what it is. For like
Okay.
22 chapters, it's everybody who can channel going, whoa.
Right.
And I tell you, the thing, and I know you'll agree with this, I really want to see the Roydion sequence.
Ooh, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, I would love to see the flashbacks. And I mean,
Right.
it could get really expensive CG wise.
Yes.
Like the floating orb above the city that crashes down, and
Right.
and just the Age of Legends, like the further back they go, and just seeing the flying like car thingies and
Right.
all of the sci-fi kind of stuff from the Age
Right.
of Legends that really separates Wheel of Time from stuff like Lord of the Rings. I mean, Lord of the Rings
Right.
doesn't have, it just isn't part of the lore. And so I think it's important that we get there.
Right.
Well, there should be hints of it throughout the series, talk about stasis boxes, etc. But
Right.
really getting that payoff.
Like you say, it's something that separates it out from most fantasy, and it kind of explains one of the, I think, more legitimate gripes with the common fantasy trope of everything taking place within medieval to like maybe industrial revolution kind of range.
Right. This is like downright post-apocalyptic, like the apocalypse was magic rather than a nuclear explosion.
Exactly. Yeah. So you have like a reason for why there was all this advanced technology. And I love it in whichever, I think we've already passed it, but the part where they talk about elevators, like,
right.
And they're like, there used to be in the Age of Legends, they say there were rooms you could step into and they would take you up into a higher room or something like that.
Right.
Just things like that. Yeah, those flashbacks going
Just
further and
meeting
further
like
back.
Lanfear before she was Lanfear, and her
Right.
being the cause of the Dark One's prison being pierced. Like,
Yeah.
just so much cool story that really fills out. Really gives more meaning to everything, all the interactions, especially with Forsaken.
I won't be a purist about anything if I can help it, but man, that the flashback scene of the boar happening.
That's really important. We gotta have that.
Yeah, there's so much, because I think Green Man's there, and
right.
You have a lot of different
there. Yeah.
Right. You have like all these different things that, oh man, it's got to be pretty darn close. And I mean, I know it'll be visually different than I'm seeing it in my head.
Yeah, it's very, I mean, it's like some striking imagery that has to be different from what's in my head, because it's also not as detailed as you want it to be a little bit.
Right.
Like there's room for interpretation there, but just conveying the level of technological advancement mostly via magic.
Right.
they've created these sort of, ter'angreal type things that are indistinguishable from technology.
Right.
And it's a really big payoff, and it helps explain so much. And that, along with the breaking of the world itself,
Yeah.
that, of course, we've got to have. It doesn't have to be immediately. I don't know that I want it to be in the very first scene necessarily, like the books have, especially after that disastrous pilot.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Don't want to repeat that. You can definitely see the show not starting with the prologue of Eye of the World because of that pilot.
Because of that, yeah. Exactly.
Although we've talked about having Lews Therin be an actual, visible person to Rand. I do like the idea of him being a separate character, a separate actor. Right. And I was thinking about this the other day. I would love to see the times when the Forsaken are discussed, or like Rand is remembering, what Samael was like, or, what Bilal was like back in the Age of Legends, having a little mini flashback to that.
Right.
Just to really convey, when someone fell to the shadow and became a Forsaken, like have that kind of it doesn't have to be much, just a moment. It could even be a montage. I don't care. But there's some cool stuff there that's like, it's in narrative, and it's like, otherwise I don't know how, I don't know how you would convey it. It's just like you think about comics from the 50s where, everyone just said everything that they were thinking, instead of, oh no, I'm locked in this room and I can't, I have to find out, rather than having it as a little bubble. Anyway.
I do think they've got to come up with ways to make the Forsaken more compelling characters, because even people who are reading it, particularly on your first read through, the Forsaken, it's hard to distinguish them.
Right, they're all just sort of cartoonishly evil, other than like Lanfear.
Yeah, right. Lanfear and Moradin are kind of the two standouts.
Yeah. And then like the rest of them are just all like scheming, evil, kind of like trying to stab each other in the back and kill Rand and get the Angriel and appease the Dark One or whatever.
Yeah. I guess Asmodean is kind of another one that you kind of
Asmodean already has his own thing,
since he ends up training Rand. But
we better have a really cool screaming demonic volcano. That's
yeah.
Thank you all for listening. As always, you can contact us at tsmpodcast.com. Got a contact form there. Fill it out. Let us know what you think of this news update about the show. What scenes are you looking forward to? Are there any characters you hope don't get cut out? Wherever you get your podcasts, just leave us a rating, review, share us with your friends who are into the Wheel of Time. Maybe talk some friends who are not into fantasy, but you want to confuse them, We'll take that. That's cool. I certainly bring it up with my friends sometimes and get looks and, have to change the subject. That's why it's nice to be able to talk about it on here, really.
Right.
Someone who knows what I'm talking about.
Just let your nerd flag fly. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Not to say I don't have any friends who read Wheel of Time. I do have some, but I have more that do not. Of course, you can always reach us on the socials at Podcast TSM on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We love hearing from you, even if it's something short. Really makes our day. It's why we do this. Next week, we will be continuing our slog through A Crown of Swords. So please join us. And until next time, Tai'Shar Manetheren.